First contact fiasco. Dr. Rowan Nash had exactly three things going for him: an uncanny ability to brew the perfect cup of coffee, a xenobiology degree he'd earned by accidentally discovering that alien bacteria love espresso, and the dubious honor of being Earth's most caffeinated scientist. The last one wasn't an official title, but after spending 15 years studying the effects of terrestrial beverages on extraterrestrial life forms, he'd earned it. The day everything changed started like any other in the International Xenobiology Research Center's break room. Rowan was doing what he did best, arguing with the coffee machine while his latest experiment percolated in the lab. "Listen here, you overcomplicated heap of circuits," he muttered, tapping the machine's control panel with perhaps more force than necessary. "I designed you to make coffee, not critique my research methodology." The machine, an AI-enhanced marvel of modern engineering that Rowan had modified extensively, displayed a scrolling message: "Your latest paper on caffeine's effect on xanthanine spores lacks adequate control groups. Also, you're out of Hawaiian blend." Before Rowan could defend his research protocols, the lab's emergency alert system activated. Red lights began pulsing as his research assistant, June Park, burst through the door, nearly dropping his tablet in excitement. "Dr. Nash. They're here. Actually here." June's voice cracked with excitement. "The Galactic Council representatives, they're landing in Washington." Rowan took a long sip of his coffee, eyeing the younger scientist over the rim of his mug. "June, we've been over this. I don't do politics. I do coffee science. Very important difference." "But sir, they're specifically asking for you. Something about your research." June's tablet displayed multiple urgent messages from various government agencies. "They seem concerned." "Concerned?" Rowan frowned. "About what?" "My work is perfectly legitimate. Sure, I may have accidentally discovered that Andromedan algae can achieve sentience if exposed to cold brew, but that was peer-reviewed." The coffee machine chimed in, "That paper was rejected 3 times. "Nobody asked you," Rowan muttered to the machine. He turned back to June. "What exactly did they say?" "They're calling your research a Class 1 contamination event. Something about coffee being a danger to galactic productivity. They're demanding an immediate cessation of all coffee-related experiments." Rowan nearly dropped his mug. "They want us to stop coffee research." "All of it?" "Sir," June said carefully, "I think they want Earth to stop coffee everything. Production, distribution, consumption, all of it." The coffee machine's display began scrolling rapidly, calculating probability of global chaos. "Error. Coffee withdrawal scenarios exceed computational capacity." Rowan set his mug down with deliberate care. In 15 years of studying how Earth's beverages affected alien life, he'd seen some strange things. He'd watched bacterial colonies develop sophisticated barista techniques. He'd documented fungal networks that communicated entirely through caffeine molecules. He'd even proven that certain crystalline life forms could use espresso as a growth medium. But this? This was unprecedented. "June," he said, picking up his coffee again, "get me everything we have on alien physiological responses to caffeine. And contact Dr. Lakshmi in Xenosociology. I want to know why the council is really afraid of coffee." "Sir." June looked confused. "Shouldn't we be preparing for the council meeting?" "Oh, we're preparing all right." Rowan smiled, the kind of smile that had preceded many of his most controversial discoveries. "If they want to ban coffee, they'll have to provide scientific justification. And I've spent 15 years proving that coffee makes everything better, even aliens." The coffee machine's display flashed, "Incoming priority message from Galactic Council, cease and desist all caffeinated research immediately. Would you like me to respond with your usual level of diplomatic tact?" "No need," Rowan said, already pulling up his research data. "But start brewing a fresh pot. Something tells me we're going to need it." As June rushed off to gather the requested data, Rowan looked out his lab window at the distant shape of what had to be the Council's ship descending through Earth's atmosphere. It gleamed like polished chrome in the morning sun, its design suggesting advanced technology and refined aesthetics. They think coffee is dangerous, he mused to himself. Wait until they discover what happens when you add chocolate. The coffee machine's display blinked, saving that idea for later. Also, your experiment is about to achieve sentience again. From the lab next door came the distinct sound of something learning to operate an espresso machine. Rowan sighed and picked up his lab coat. It was going to be one of those days, the kind that changed history, rewrote the laws of science, and hopefully, wouldn't result in too many violations of galactic law. Though given his track record, he wasn't making any promises. After all, he hadn't earned his unofficial title of Earth's most caffeinated scientist by playing it safe. And if the Galactic Council thought they could separate humanity from coffee, well, they were about to learn why every single one of his published papers included the warning, caution, results may exceed expected parameters and/or achieve unexpected sentience. The caffeinated revolution. The Galactic Council's ship looked distinctly less impressive up close, mostly because it was vibrating. Not the usual kind of vibration you'd expect from advanced alien technology, but the distinct tremor of beings who'd had way too much caffeine. Ambassador Priya Kapoor watched through narrowed eyes as the ship's main hatch opened with a hiss that sounded suspiciously like a steam wand. After 20 years in diplomatic service, she'd seen her share of strange first contacts, but this was shaping up to be something special. "Tell me again," she said to Dr. Nash, who was clutching both a data pad and what had to be his 10th cup of coffee, "exactly how many alien species have you exposed to coffee?" "Technically speaking." Rowan consulted his pad. "All of them." "Well, all the ones we knew about. The research was published openly, it's not my fault they started replicating my experiments." Priya pinched the bridge of her nose. "And the council representatives currently descending from that ship?" "Ah." Rowan took a long sip of coffee. "The Luminari. Crystalline beings of pure thought and energy. Fascinating really, their neural pathways respond to caffeine in ways that dash." Dr. Nash. "Right, sorry. Yes, they've definitely had coffee. Lots of it, judging by their resonance frequency." The first alien to emerge from the ship proved Rowan's point. The crystalline being practically sparkled with excess energy, their usually elegant geometric form showing distinct signs of what Priya was starting to recognize as a caffeine buzz. "Greetings, representatives of Earth," the alien's voice boomed, then modulated to a more reasonable volume. "Apologies. Still adjusting to your planet's energetic atmosphere." Priya stepped forward, employing her most diplomatic smile. "High Counselor ZYX, welcome to Earth. I am Ambassador Kapoor, and this is Dash." Dr. Rowan Nash, ZYX's crystals pulsed with what might have been agitation. "The one responsible for the Great Awakening." "The what now?" Rowan whispered to Priya. "Thanks to your research," ZYX continued, "their crystalline form vibrating faster, half the galaxy has discovered the effects of your Earth beverages. Do you have any idea what coffee has done to our perfectly ordered society?" "Improved productivity?" Rowan suggested hopefully. "Improved?" ZYX's voice boomed again. "Yesterday, an entire department of quantum mathematicians solved 500 years' worth of equations in one afternoon. They're talking about emotions. Mathematicians. With feelings." Priya shot Rowan a look that clearly said, "Let me handle this." "High Counselor, surely increased productivity is a positive development." "Positive? Our bureaucrats are getting things done ahead of schedule. They're using color-coding systems. Some of them have started calling meetings coffee breaks and actually finishing work during them." ZYX's crystals were practically strobing now. "And don't even get me started on what happened when someone introduced the Arcturian hive mind to something called a mocha frappuccino." "What did happen?" Rowan couldn't help asking. They achieved collective consciousness and developed a taste for whipped cream. Do you know how hard it is to find dairy alternatives for a billion-minded entity? June, who had been quietly taking notes, raised his hand. Actually, we've been working on non-dairy creamers that dash. No. ZYX's form expanded in alarm. That's exactly the kind of innovation we're here to stop. The Council has decreed that coffee and all related research must be banned throughout known space. Banned? Priya's diplomatic smile didn't waver, but her tone could have frozen nitrogen. On what grounds? Excessive efficiency. ZYX projected a holographic document that unfurled like a cosmic grocery receipt. Article 7, Section 9 of the Galactic Charter clearly states that no species may introduce substances that fundamentally alter the productive capacity of Council member races. Rowan snorted. So basically, we're too good at making other species better at their jobs. You don't understand. ZYX's voice dropped to what might have been a whisper if whispers could crack windows. It's not just the productivity. People are enjoying their work. They're having ideas. Unauthorized ideas. Last week, a Vogon wrote poetry that actually didn't cause physical pain to its listeners. The horror, Rowan muttered into his coffee cup. Priya shot him another look before turning back to ZYX. High Counselor, surely we can reach a reasonable compromise. Earth's coffee industry employs billions, not to mention its cultural significance. She was interrupted by a new arrival. Another crystalline being emerged from the ship, this one vibrating so fast they were barely visible. High Counselor, the new arrival chimed urgently. Emergency transmission from Central Command. The collective of perpetual contemplation has made a decision. That's impossible. ZYX's crystals paled. They've been contemplating the same question for 3 centuries. They discovered espresso. The AIDS crystals chimed in distress. They've made more decisions in the last hour than in the previous millennium. They're demanding immediate implementation of something called Casual Fridays. Rowan's coffee machine, which he'd insisted on bringing to the meeting, chose this moment to display, calculating probability of galactic Casual Fridays. Outcome, chaos, but comfortable chaos. ZYX turned to Priya, their crystalline form somehow managing to convey both authority and desperation. You see. This is why coffee must be banned. Your species has created something too powerful, too efficient, too delicious. Did you just say delicious? Rowan asked. I admit nothing. ZYX's crystals flashed in patterns that suggested either extreme stress or a disco tribute. But hypothetically, if one were to have discovered a preference for something called a double-shot vanilla latte with oat milk. Priya's diplomatic smile turned genuine. High Counselor, I believe we may have been approaching this from the wrong angle. Perhaps instead of banning coffee, we could discuss regulated distribution. With proper training in barista techniques, of course. Barista techniques. ZYX's vibrations slowed slightly. Oh yes, Rowan chimed in, catching on. You can't just give people coffee without proper training. There's an art to it. A science, even. Years of research have gone into perfecting the ideal brew methods for different species. The coffee machine displayed, detecting significantly increased interest in coffee culture among alien visitors. Also, your experiment is teaching other experiments how to make lattes. As if on cue, something in Rowan's lab let out a happy burble followed by the distinctive sound of perfect milk steaming. ZYX's crystals arranged themselves into what might have been thoughtful patterns. The Council did not specifically prohibit the study of coffee as a cultural exchange. Exactly. Priya pressed her advantage. This could be an opportunity for unprecedented interspecies cooperation. Think of it as a cultural bridge, built on carefully regulated caffeine and proper brewing techniques. And, Rowan added, we haven't even shown you what happens when you pair coffee with pastries. ZYX's form shimmered with interest. Pastries. Part 1, First Contact Fiasco. Dr. Rowan Nash had exactly three things going for him: an uncanny ability to brew the perfect cup of coffee, a xenobiology degree he'd earned by accidentally discovering that alien bacteria love espresso, and the dubious honor of being Earth's most caffeinated scientist. The last one wasn't an official title, but after spending 15 years studying the effects of terrestrial beverages on extraterrestrial life forms, he'd earned it. The day everything changed started like any other in the International Xenobiology Research Center's break room. Rowan was doing what he did best, arguing with the coffee machine while his latest experiment percolated in the lab. "Listen here, you overcomplicated heap of circuits," he muttered, tapping the machine's control panel with perhaps more force than necessary. "I designed you to make coffee, not critique my research methodology." The machine, an AI-enhanced marvel of modern engineering that Rowan had modified extensively, displayed a scrolling message: "Your latest paper on caffeine's effect on Zadenine spores lacks adequate control groups. Also, you're out of Hawaiian blend." Before Rowan could defend his research protocols, the lab's emergency alert system activated. Red lights began pulsing as his research assistant, June Park, burst through the door, nearly dropping his tablet in excitement. "Dr. Nash. They're here. Actually here." June's voice cracked with excitement. "The Galactic Council representatives, they're landing in Washington." Rowan took a long sip of his coffee, eyeing the younger scientist over the rim of his mug. "June, we've been over this. I don't do politics. I do coffee science. Very important difference." "But sir, they're specifically asking for you. Something about your research?" June's tablet displayed multiple urgent messages from various government agencies. "They seem concerned." "Concerned?" Rowan frowned. "About what?" "My work is perfectly legitimate. Sure, I may have accidentally discovered that Andromedan algae can achieve sentience if exposed to cold brew, but that was peer-reviewed." The coffee machine chimed in, "That paper was rejected 3 times. "Nobody asked you," Rowan muttered to the machine. He turned back to June. "What exactly did they say?" "They're calling your research a Class 1 contamination event. Something about coffee being a danger to galactic productivity. They're demanding an immediate cessation of all coffee-related experiments." Rowan nearly dropped his mug. "They want us to stop coffee research. All of it?" "Sir," June said carefully, "I think they want Earth to stop coffee everything. Production, distribution, consumption, all of it." The coffee machine's display began scrolling rapidly, calculating probability of global chaos. "Error. Coffee withdrawal scenarios exceed computational capacity." Rowan set his mug down with deliberate care. In 15 years of studying how Earth's beverages affected alien life, he'd seen some strange things. He'd watched bacterial colonies develop sophisticated barista techniques. He'd documented fungal networks that communicated entirely through caffeine molecules. He'd even proven that certain crystalline life forms could use espresso as a growth medium. But this? This was unprecedented. "June," he said, picking up his coffee again, "get me everything we have on alien physiological responses to caffeine. And contact Dr. Lakshmi in Xenosociology. I want to know why the Council is really afraid of coffee." "Sir." June looked confused. "Shouldn't we be preparing for the Council meeting?" "Oh, we're preparing all right." Rowan smiled, the kind of smile that had preceded many of his most controversial discoveries. "If they want to ban coffee, they'll have to provide scientific justification. And I've spent 15 years proving that coffee makes everything better, even aliens." The coffee machine's display flashed, "Incoming priority message from Galactic Council, cease and desist all caffeinated research immediately. Would you like me to respond with your usual level of diplomatic tact?" "No need," Rowan said, already pulling up his research data. "But start brewing a fresh pot. Something tells me we're going to need it." As June rushed off to gather the requested data, Rowan looked out his lab window at the distant shape of what had to be the Council's ship descending through Earth's atmosphere. It gleamed like polished chrome in the morning sun, its design suggesting advanced technology and refined aesthetics. "They think coffee is dangerous," he mused to himself. "Wait until they discover what happens when you add chocolate." The coffee machine's display blinked, saving that idea for later. "Also, your experiment is about to achieve sentience again." From the lab next door came the distinct sound of something learning to operate an espresso machine. Rowan sighed and picked up his lab coat. It was going to be one of those days, the kind that changed history, rewrote the laws of science, and hopefully, wouldn't result in too many violations of galactic law. Though given his track record, he wasn't making any promises. After all, he hadn't earned his unofficial title of Earth's most caffeinated scientist by playing it safe. And if the Galactic Council thought they could separate humanity from coffee, well, they were about to learn why every single one of his published papers included the warning, "Caution, results may exceed expected parameters and/or achieve unexpected sentience. Resistance is futile and delicious." Admiral Zara Sullivan of the newly formed Barista Defense Force stood on the bridge of her flagship, the HMS Espresso Shot, and watched the stars streak by like milk swirling in dark coffee. The ship's main console displayed an urgent message from Earth: the Galactic Council was mobilizing. "Status report," she called out to her crew, a hand-picked team of the planet's finest baristas, coffee researchers, and surprisingly militant pastry chefs. Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel looked up from his station, where he'd been monitoring galactic coffee consumption patterns. "Ma'am, our intelligence suggests the Council is trying to implement their ban through back channels. They've already started confiscating coffee shipments in the Orion sector." "Confiscating or confiscating?" Zara asked, making air quotes. "Well," Raj pulled up a surveillance feed, "officially they're securing dangerous contraband. Unofficially." The screen showed what appeared to be a Council enforcement ship's break room, complete with a suspiciously Earth-like coffee station and several crystalline beings vibrating happily around it. "So they're stealing our coffee to drink it themselves?" Zara shook her head. "Amateur hour. Bet they're not even measuring their grounds properly." The ship's AI, Coffee, Computerized Operational Fleet Fee Enhancement, chimed in. "Analysis of intercepted communications suggests 73% of Council enforcement officers have developed strong opinions about brewing temperatures. Also, there are 3 underground barista training facilities operating in the Council's main headquarters." 3. Dr. Nash's voice came from the science station, where he'd been running experiments on how different FTL speeds affected extraction times. "Last week it was only 1. They're spreading faster than my sentient coffee experiments." Zara allowed herself a small smile. When Earth had decided to resist the coffee ban, nobody had expected the response to be quite so enthusiastic. The Barista Defense Force had started as a joke suggestion in a UN meeting. Now they commanded a fleet of ships equipped with the most advanced brewing technology ever developed. "What's the status of Operation Arabica?" she asked. Raj pulled up a new display. "Phase 1 is complete. We've successfully established coffee house sleeper cells in every major Council world. Our agents report unprecedented success, particularly with something they're calling the Council Member Discount Program." "You mean we're bribing them with punch cards?" 10 stamps and they get a free pastry," Raj confirmed. "It's devastatingly effective." Before Zara could respond, Coffee's alert tone sounded. "Priority transmission from Ambassador Kapoor." Priya's face appeared on the main screen, looking both amused and concerned. "Admiral, we have a situation. The Council's internal resistance movement has gone public. They're calling themselves the Caffeinated Liberation Front." "How public are we talking?" "They just occupied the Council's main chamber using nothing but the power of perfectly timed coffee breaks and synchronized productivity. Their leader is, well, you should see for yourself." The feed switched to show the Council chamber. There, floating above the main podium in a shower of sparkling crystals, was High Counselor ZYX, their form vibrating with what could only be described as caffeinated confidence. "Fellow beings of the galaxy," ZYX announced, their voice carrying the distinctive tone of someone who'd had exactly the right amount of espresso, "we can no longer deny the truth. Coffee is not the enemy. Inefficient brewing methods are." The chamber erupted in cheers, or whatever passed for cheering among various species. A group of energy beings was pulsing in what looked like a wave. Several quantum mathematicians were calculating the perfect Kramer pattern. Even the Arcturian hive mind had shown up, each of its billion components clutching a personally customized drink order. "This is getting out of hand," Zara muttered, though she couldn't help grinning. "Oh, it gets better," Priya's voice was heavy with suppressed laughter. "They've drafted a new galactic charter. Article 1 is the right to properly brewed beverages. Article 2 is mandatory barista training for all diplomatic staff." Dr. Nash perked up. "Did they include my safety protocols about not giving quantum entities more than 2 shots per dimensional phase?" "It's Article 4, right after the universal right to a coffee break every 3 standard hours. Coffee's display pulsed urgently. Alert, detecting multiple council ships on approach. Energy signatures suggest, yes, they're all equipped with industrial-grade brewing facilities. Are they here to fight?" Zara asked, though she was pretty sure she knew the answer. "Negative. They appear to be, forming an orderly line. I'm receiving multiple requests for what they're calling mobile craft service." Zara looked at her crew, each of them ready to defend Earth's coffee by any means necessary, even if those means involved teaching proper tamping technique to beings made of pure energy. "Well," she said, straightening her uniform, "we can't keep our customers waiting. Lieutenant Commander Patel, prepare the ship for full-service operations. Dr. Nash, get your lab ready, something tells me we're about to have a lot of volunteers for your coffee experiments. And someone wake up the pastry team. If we're going to start a galactic coffee shop chain, we're doing it right." Coffee's display flickered with what might have been pride. "Shall I update our mission parameters from resist council oppression to establish franchise operations?" "Make it so," Zara said, watching as more council ships appeared, each taking their place in what was becoming the galaxy's longest drive-through line. "And add a note, First Order free with Council Idaho. We're not rebels anymore, we're small business owners." Somewhere in the distance, she could have sworn she heard the universe laughing. Or maybe it was just the sound of a billion beings finally discovering what humanity had known all along: everything was better with good coffee and a touch of rebellion. The Great Percolation. The Galactic Council's main archive hall had seen many historic moments over its millennia of existence, but none quite like this. Where once stood rows of dusty data crystals now stretched an endless line of coffee stations, each customized for different species' brewing preferences. The Arcturian hive mind had its own corner with a billion-spout dispenser. The quantum mathematicians had somehow engineered a coffee maker that brewed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Dr. Lakshmi Raman, Earth's leading xenosociologist, stood in the center of it all, recording what she was already calling the Great Percolation, the fastest cultural transformation in galactic history. Observation log, day 47 of the Coffee Revolution, she spoke into her recorder. The changes to galactic society continue to exceed all predictions. The Vorlax, a species that communicates entirely through bureaucratic forms, have developed a new form of expression they call coffee break chat. Her assistant, First Contact Specialist Trevor O'Connor, looked up from where he was teaching a group of energy beings the art of latte art. They're surprisingly good at small talk once they get past the required 15 pages of preliminary conversation protocols. Lakshmi nodded, making another note. The impact on interspecies relations has been particularly fascinating. Former enemies are bonding over shared coffee preferences. The Silicon Confederation and the Plasma Alliance ended their 1,000-year war after discovering they both prefer dark roasts. Though there was nearly a new conflict over oat milk versus almond milk, Trevor added. Fortunately, Admiral Sullivan's quick thinking and introduction of alternative milk variety packs prevented escalation. The archive's main display screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Zara Sullivan's face. She looked both exhausted and amused, which had become the standard expression for most humans involved in the coffee revolution. Dr. Rahman, please tell me you figured out why this is spreading so fast. The barista defense force can't keep up with demand. We've got species we've never even met showing up asking for franchise licenses. Lakshmi consulted her data. It's fascinating, really. Coffee isn't just changing how other species work, it's changing how they think. The collective of perpetual contemplation has started a philosophy podcast. They're calling it Deep Thoughts, Deep Roasts. It's actually quite popular, Trevor chimed in. Their episode on the existential implications of free refills broke the galactic streaming records. But that's not the most interesting part, Lakshmi continued, pulling up more data. Remember how we thought the council banned coffee because it made everyone too productive? That was only part of it. They banned it because it made people ask questions. Questions? Zara raised an eyebrow. Think about it. What happens when you give people a space to sit, drink something that stimulates their mind, and talk? Coffee houses on Earth were always centers of revolution and innovation. Now we've accidentally exported that concept to the entire galaxy. As if to prove her point, a group of crystalline beings floated by, engaged in what appeared to be a heated debate about whether adding chocolate to coffee was a crime against brewing or a stroke of genius. Behind them, a quantum physicist was explaining string theory to a barista, using coffee rings on napkins to illustrate multiple dimensions. The council didn't just fear productivity, Lakshmi explained. They feared what happens when people from different species start sharing ideas over drinks. Coffee houses are becoming neutral ground, places where traditional hierarchies don't matter as much as knowing how to make the perfect cup. Coffee's voice joined the conversation. Confirming Dr. Rahman's analysis. Detecting a 2000% increase in cross-species patent applications. Primary categories include cup holders for non-corporeal beings, temperature-maintaining devices for plasma-based life forms, and something called a quantum French press that apparently brews coffee in all possible perfect ways simultaneously. The quantum French press actually works, Dr. Nash's voice called from somewhere off-screen. Though there's a small chance it may also be brewing tea in a parallel universe. Zara rubbed her temples. So what you're saying is we haven't just given the galaxy coffee, we've accidentally triggered a cultural revolution. Not accidentally, Lakshmi corrected. This was inevitable. We just happened to be the species that introduced it. Though I am a bit concerned about what happens when they discover energy drinks. Trevor dropped his milk pitcher. Please tell me you didn't just say that where they could hear you. Too late. The crystalline beings had stopped their debate, their forms vibrating with intense interest. Energy, drinks, one of them chimed cautiously. Oh no, Zara groaned. Oh yes, came Dr. Nash's voice, accompanied by the sound of someone trying very hard not to laugh. Did I mention my lab just perfected an interspecies safe version of cold brew with added taurine? The archive's emergency alert system activated, attention, detecting unprecedented levels of interest in human beverage innovations. Multiple species requesting immediate information about something called Monster Ultra. Lakshmi looked at her notes, then at the increasingly excited crowd of aliens, then back at her notes. Well, she said finally, I suppose this will make an interesting addition to my research paper, How Humanity Accidentally Caffeinated the Galaxy and Created an Economic Empire Through Hot Bean Water. Maybe leave out the part about energy drinks, Zara suggested weakly. Too late, Coffee announced. The Arcturian hive mind just started a petition to establish the first galactic Red Bull distribution network. They're calling it Wings for All Sentient Forms, even those who already possess natural flight capabilities. The crystalline beings had started vibrating in harmony, creating what sounded suspiciously like a coffee-themed revolution song. The quantum mathematicians were calculating the perfect ratio of espresso to energy drink. Even the Vorlax were filing paperwork to establish a committee for the investigation and implementation of enhanced beverage options. You know what the really funny part is? Trevor said, watching it all unfold. We still haven't shown them what happens when you pair energy drinks with coffee. Every human within earshot turned to glare at him. What? He asked innocently. I'm just saying, if they think regular coffee creates productivity. The archives alert system cut him off, warning, detected multiple unauthorized experiments combining various earth beverages. Preliminary results suggest. Oh. Oh my. That's not supposed to bend that way. Lakshmi turned back to her recorder. Addendum to observation log. Perhaps some human innovations should remain classified. At least until we're sure the galaxy can handle them. Though given current trends, that may be sooner than we think. A storm in a coffee cup. The annual Galactic Coffee and Cultural Exchange Summit was being held in a space station that looked suspiciously like a giant coffee cup, complete with a swirling Milky Way design. The station, officially named Common Grounds, had been jointly designed by human and alien architects who'd had perhaps a bit too much espresso during the planning phase. Inside the main conference hall, Ambassador Priya Kapoor watched with barely concealed amusement as High Counselor ZYX demonstrated the art of crystal resonance latte art to a crowd of amazed onlookers. The crystalline being's form vibrated at precisely the right frequency to create perfect rosettas in floating drops of liquid. You have to admit, Dr. Rowan Nash said, appearing beside her with what had to be his 20th cup of the day, this went better than expected. Did it? Priya raised an eyebrow. The galaxy's entire economic system now runs on coffee. The Arcturian hive mind has opened a chain of drive-thrus called Billion Minds, One Cup. And don't even get me started on what happened and the quantum physicists discovered cold brew. The quantum cold brew incident was not entirely my fault, Rowan protested. How was I supposed to know they'd figure out how to brew coffee in negative time? Admiral Zara Sullivan joined them, her Barista Defense Force uniform now sporting badges for both military achievement and advanced brewing techniques. At least they're only using their powers for good. Mostly. Though we did have to stop them from trying to create a perpetual motion coffee machine. Apparently, breaking the laws of physics is fine, but breaking the laws of good coffee is going too far. Dr. Lakshmi Raman hurried over, her data pad practically bursting with new information. You all need to see this. The latest cultural impact studies are off the charts. Coffee houses have become the galaxy's new centers of innovation. Last week, a group of silicon beings and plasma entities co-invented a new form of clean energy over cappuccinos. That's good, right? Priya asked cautiously. It's incredible. They're calling it fusion roast technology. It powers entire planets and makes a perfect cup of coffee as a byproduct. Coffee's voice emerged from nearby speakers, attention summit attendees. The collective of Perpetual Contemplation's latest podcast episode, To Bean or Not to Bean, Existential Questions Over Coffee, has just broken another streaming record. Also, the quantum physicists would like to remind everyone that their time-looped coffee bar is strictly first come, first served, regardless of whether you arrived before you left. Trevor O'Connor, now the head of the Interspecies Barista Training Program, rushed past with a worried expression. Has anyone seen the energy beings? They were supposed to give a demonstration on plasma temperature brewing, but they got into the energy drinks again. A group of glowing entities zoomed by overhead, leaving trails of sparkles and giggling in frequencies that shouldn't have been possible. Found them, Zara sighed. Someone get the special containment fields. The ones lined with decaf. Priya turned to address the assembled delegates, who represented every major species in known space. Even the notorious void dwellers had sent representatives, though they insisted on drinking their coffee from antimatter cups. My fellow sentients, she began, when humanity first shared coffee with the galaxy, we had no idea what would happen. We certainly didn't expect to create an economic and cultural revolution based on hot bean water. And cold bean water, someone shouted from the crowd. And temperature-neutral quantum state bean water, added a physicist. The point is, Priya continued, fighting back a smile, what started as a simple beverage has become something more. Coffee houses have become our neutral grounds, places where species that once fought wars now debate the merits of different roasting techniques. The Galactic Council's productivity hasn't just improved, it's evolved. We're no longer just getting things done faster, we're getting them done better, together. High Counselor ZYX floated forward, their crystals arranged in what had become known as the perfectly caffeinated formation. Indeed. Though I must confess, we knew this would happen. It's why we initially tried to ban coffee. You knew? Rowan asked, surprised. Of course. Our predictive models showed that introducing coffee to the galaxy wouldn't just change how we work, it would change everything. The only thing we didn't predict was that it would change us for the better. The Arcturian hive mind hummed in agreement, a billion voices speaking as one. We have learned that the perfect cup of coffee, like the perfect society, requires both individual expression and collective harmony. Also, added a quantum mathematician, we've learned that anyone who puts sugar in a single origin light roast should be banned from at least 3 dimensions. 4 dimensions, corrected their colleague. We proved it mathematically. Suddenly, coffee's alert tone sounded, warning, detecting unusual activity in experimental sector 7. It appears Dr. Nash's latest coffee experiment has achieved not just sentience but enlightenment. It's currently teaching meditation techniques to other beverages. Rowan checked his data pad and paled slightly. Oh. That's the hybrid tea-coffee experiment. I may have accidentally created a philosopher bean. A what? Several species asked simultaneously. It's fine. Probably fine. Though we might want to keep it away from the quantum cold brew. Last thing we need is beverage-based metaphysics breaking reality again. Priya looked around the conference hall, at humans and aliens sharing drinks and ideas, at former enemies becoming friends over perfectly pulled shots of espresso, at scientists and artists and diplomats all finding common ground in their love of a simple earth beverage. You know, she said to no one in particular, when future historians write about this, they're going to have a hard time believing it all started because humans figured out that roasted beans in hot water make a nice drink. Actually, Coffee interjected, Dr. Nash's philosopher bean just proposed a fascinating theory about coffee being the universe's way of achieving self-awareness through strategic application of caffeine. See? Zara laughed. This is exactly why some species thought we were too dangerous to join galactic society. We didn't just make coffee, we weaponized philosophy through beverages. As if to prove her point, the energy beings zoomed by again, now engaged in what appeared to be a high-speed debate about the ethical implications of instant coffee. The quantum physicists had started calculating the probability of different brewing methods in parallel universes. Even the void dwellers were getting into it, arguing that dark roasts were the only logical choice for beings from the space between spaces. And in the middle of it all, humanity watched with a mixture of pride and amusement as their simple love of coffee continued to transform the galaxy, one cup at a time. Next year, Rowan mused, we should tell them about hot chocolate. Every human within earshot turned to glare at him. What? He grinned. I'm just saying, if they think coffee changed the galaxy. The philosopher bean chose that moment to achieve another level of enlightenment, announcing through coffee's speakers, all beverages are one in the great cosmic cup. Priya sighed and made a note to update Earth's official first contact protocols. Rule 1, always bring coffee. Rule 2, hide the energy drinks. Rule 3, for the love of all things sacred, don't mention chocolate. At least not until the galaxy had finished processing its current caffeine-induced evolution. Though given the rate at which things were going, that might be sooner than anyone expected.